Buying your first house does not have to be a stressful event. This should be an enjoyable process for you and your family. And there is so much unrealistic advice out there from big names like Graham Stephan who tell you it's just this super easy process, but don't give you good advice. I've helped so many people get into their first homes, and today I'm gonna do the same for you. Let's talk. So, how exactly do you even start this process? Well, stick around today because I'm gonna answer 7 questions that I get asked all the time when it comes to the process of buying your first home. I can remember when my wife and I first bought our first house. This house behind us was our first house, and we loved it. The whole process was fantastic. And the reason why is because someone taught us. I had a couple of mentors who were willing to talk to me about real estate and who were not shy about saying this is what you should do and this is what you shouldn't do. I can remember walking to our house for the very first time once it was completed. It was completely empty, but we were so excited. We actually brought an air mattress and we slept inside because we were just so happy and so excited that it was actually a possibility for us to buy our first house. And that's the same thing that I want for you. I want you to have that same enjoyment after you close, you get the keys, you can go to your house and you could just be excited. You can say, wow, we actually were able to do this. So let's head on into the office so I can answer 7 super important questions that you probably have. All right. Okay, so the very first question that a lot of people are always gonna ask, how much house can I afford? That's a very legitimate question. With the way house prices are right now, everyone wants to know, well, what can I actually afford based on what I make? Now, there are a few factors that are involved in figuring out how much you can afford, but let's do a quick example. Let's use the average salary in America, which is around $56,000 a year. And let's assume that you have good credit, around 700. You don't have a lot of unnecessary and extra debt. With this scenario, $56,000 a year, with about 700 credit score, you're gonna be able to afford around a $175,000 house. Now, there's a lot of good calculators online that you can use that'll definitely kind of help you gauge, but the absolute best thing that you really could do to figure out how much house you could afford is working with a lender. A lender is gonna be able to break it down and give you specifics on how much you can afford. And let's say you want to be able to afford more than you're currently at. Well, that lender is gonna be able to tell you exactly what you need to do. Whether that you need to try to find a way to increase your income, or you need to lower your debt, or let's improve your credit score. Whatever the scenario is, a lender is going to be able to tremendously help you figure that out. Question number 2, how do I know when I'm actually ready to buy my first house? Again, this is a fantastic question and one that not a lot of people seem to be giving answers on. Well, let me tell you some of the biggest things that you need to make sure you have before you know I'm ready to buy my first house. You're going to need things like a good stable income, good credit, not a lot of debt, and you are gonna need some cash saved up to buy the house for the down payment. Now, this is gonna vary from state to state because the home prices vary so much from California to down here in Louisiana. But on average, if you make about $80,000 a year, or let's say you're married and between the two of you, you make $80,000, $90,000 a year, you guys have like a minimum credit score of around 680 to 700. Well, you're in a pretty good spot. All you need to do now is just save up that money for the down payment. I would suggest, anywhere from 8 to 10 grand. That's a great place to start. You might need more. Again, working with a lender is going to be so key in this situation because they're going to tell you, all right, if you want to buy this, this is what you qualify for. This is how much your down payment is going to be. This is your monthly payment. So working with that lender is still going to be key in this situation. But overall, if you have those things and you know that you really want to buy a house, that's how you know it's time to start looking. Now, there are certain circumstances in which you can get down payment assistance, which would mean instead of having, a full gigantic amount to bring to closing, it could be cut in half. Or you could qualify for a rural development loan, which would mean no money down. So definitely you want to talk with the lender because you may qualify for those. Question number 3 is a fantastic question. What credit requirements do I need to buy a house? You heard me just say that 680 is a good minimum, but actually you can get away with like a 620. Now, granted, you should not be aiming for a lower credit score. You should be doing everything possible to raise your credit score. That doesn't just help you in buying a house. That can help you getting a car, better financing, and specifically to a house. If you can get a really high credit score and you can aim for like 780 close to 800, you're going to get the best interest rates possible, which are definitely going to help in your monthly payments. Now, what do you do if your credit is bad? Well, luckily there's tons of solutions. By this point, you should already know that working with a lender is so key. But if you don't, working with a lender is key. And here's another reason why, because they're going to have access to what's called a credit repair specialist. Almost every lender that I've worked with, they know someone who is really good at helping people to repair their credit or just build their credit in general. So if your credit's not looking so hot, or you're really close to getting, that better tier interest rate, then work with a credit specialist. Figure out what you need to do, get a plan, and then execute that plan. Question number 4. What is a down payment and how much am I going to need? Now, this definitely will vary depending on the amount of purchase price you're qualified for and the type of loan you're going to get. Some people are going to want to do a conventional loan, which sometimes will require 5, 10, and maybe even 20% down. There's FHA loans, which require like 3 to 5% down. Rural development loans are going to be like 0% down. And then of course there's those down payment assistance programs that I was telling you about, where the government will chip in if you meet certain qualifications and they will pay part of your down payment. But there is a catch with that. Now, the biggest catch, the things that I've heard, is you can't sell your house for 3 years and you can't refinance for 3 years as well. But if you're not having to come to the table with an extra 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 grand, it could easily be worth it, especially if you plan on staying in your house long term. Question number 5, and this goes right along with the down payments, but what are closing costs and how do they differ from a down payment? Well, closing costs are a little bit different than a down payment, although they do include down payments. Closing costs are going to be things related to the title company, to the lender. Let's say you're going to buy a house and let's say you had an inspection done. It turned out not to be amazing, not deal breaking, but now the seller is going to pay $2,000 towards closing costs. It's the things that help like facilitate and all the administrative paperwork. You'll have like your title insurance, your fees, all that kind of stuff. There's a huge list of things that can happen. If I can find a good screenshot, I will put up a screenshot now of what a closing document looks like, and you can see exactly what is going to be on for closing costs. Now, typically closing costs are going to run you anywhere from 1 to 2% of the purchase price. That can vary, but usually that is a good range. So if your purchase price is $200,000, you can expect anywhere from an extra $2,000 to $4,000 going towards those closing costs. And I recently had a client, actually we're going to be closing in a couple of days. He was able to get this down payment assistance program called LHC, and it's phenomenal because it helped him out to be able to afford the house even more, to where he didn't have to come out of pocket nearly as much for that down payment. It's a phenomenal program. So definitely work with your lender to see if you qualify for anything like that. Question number 6 is a very good question. What do I look for when picking a home? What are some things that I should be looking out for? What do I pick? What's good? What's bad? And that's a fantastic question. And if you've been following me for any time and if you've seen some of my videos, you know what I'm about to say. The biggest thing is always going to be location. Location can make or break the amount of equity you gain, and it can definitely affect maybe later in the future if you decide to sell. If you're in a location that's not desirable, doesn't have good schools, not close to hospitals, if you live, on 100 acres somewhere in the middle of nowhere, not close to anything, your target client that you're trying to sell to in the future is going to be very limited. But some other things that you really want to look at besides like good schools and jobs is you want to look at the actual job market itself. Look at the city, the population growth. Is it growing? You want to look at the crime rate in a specific area in that city. All these things matter tremendously about the location. And when it comes to the house itself, this is where it becomes very subjective. It's very opinion based. Some people might really like carpet. Some people really don't. Some people like this color. Some people don't. But there's a few things that you can look out for, some things that you want to look for when picking a home that can definitely make or break it. Some initial things that you want to look for when you're walking through the house is you want to look for things like water stains in the ceiling. You want to look at the roof. Does it look like it's in good condition? Does the flooring look good? Does it seem to be buckling? If there's a backyard, does there happen to be standing water? Things like this can be huge. Is there a smell in the house? And at this point, getting a home inspection is something you should never skip. Home inspections are going to tell you so much about the house that you would have never known. It is worth the $300 to $500 price tag that most inspectors are going to charge you. Final question is, what are a few things I should never do when looking for a home? And what are some things that I should never do during the process of buying the home once you actually sign the contract? Again, a very good question. This is like towards the end of your journey buying your first home. And I've seen so many people make mistakes at this point that have cost them either their house or they have cost them maybe a good interest rate because they weren't thinking that this could hurt them. So while looking for a house, never rush the process. Don't rush to buy a house just because, someone tells you, ooh, hurry up and buy this. Don't let a lender, don't let your agent rush you into buying a house. Make sure you make an informed decision because this is the biggest single purchase you're ever going to make in your life. And speaking of your agent, don't take their opinions for granted. They may have amazing insight into the location. They may be specialized in a couple of areas in the city. They may be a specialist when it comes to new homes. Don't take their opinion for granted because you hired them for a specific reason and they may know so much about the area, the location, and it's good to hear what they have to say. Not that their opinion is going to fully matter, but it should hold weight with you. Now, once you're under contract, the biggest thing that I can tell you to never do is do not open any new credit cards. Do not try to go get another loan. Don't try to get a car. Leave those things alone. That can be detrimental to you actually buying that house. See, when a lender first qualifies you, they look at all that. They look at your debt, they look at your income, and they say, okay, based on your current situation, your current debt, income, you can afford this. And if you go out and buy a $50,000, $60,000 car that you did not have before, and if you all of a sudden open up a $20,000 credit card with like rooms to go or something to get furniture, and you max it out, that can be the end of you being able to buy a house. That can dramatically change how much you qualify for. Because at the end, right before you sign, the lender, if they do their job right, they're going to run another credit check. They're going to run a soft credit to see, have you opened any new accounts? Is your debt to income the same? And if it's pretty much the same, then you're all good to go. But if they see that all of a sudden you have ran up this credit card, you have a new car, they might not qualify you for a $200,000 house anymore. You might only qualify for 170. But if your purchase price is 185, well, now you're out of luck. And the last big thing is don't let anything happen to your job within reason. Of course, there's some things you can't control, but what I mean is don't get fired, especially on your day off.
Got fired yesterday.
For real? I thought you had a day off yesterday.
I did. I went in there to pick up my check, came home. Supervisor called me about 4 o'clock, talking about they got me on videotape stealing boxes.
Don't do anything that you can control to jeopardize your job because that's your income. Anything that can affect your income that's negative is going to be huge. And on the flip side, if you get a raise or you get a bonus, definitely discuss that with your lender first before accepting, because there may be an opportunity for you to still get a raise. But if you just talk with your boss and say, hey, look, I'm buying a house. If I get this big raise, it is going to affect how much I have to put as a down payment. Can this raise be effective like the day of or the day after closing? A lot of times bosses are not going to care about that. They'll work with you. But because that could impact, let's say you're getting down payment assistance and it's income based and now you're making much more income, well, you might not qualify. And that might all of a sudden say you now have to bring $15,000 to the closing, which you were only anticipating, $8,000. So that could be huge. Definitely before you accept a raise or a bonus, work with the lender. They may tell you it's not a problem, it's not going to affect you, then, by all means do it. Now, one little bonus tip is a big part of this is trying to figure out the state that you're living in. You live in California, New York, Texas, where do you live? Is this state actually affordable? Can I buy realistically based on the income I have, the debt that I have? Can I buy in this state? Is this a good state? Well, luckily for you, I ranked every single video for first-time homebuyers to tell you which states are the absolute best. Click on the video right here to see if your state makes the top 10.